Sasha Qualkenbush. I'm a real estate attorney.
I'm Shannon Carter. I'm a real estate agent and investor.
I'm Jackie Hurtis, and I'm a residential mortgage lender.
And we're
the Property Queens.
Today we're going to be talking about property red flags. So this is going to help you when you go into a home prior to actually putting an offer or getting a purchase agreement signed. Just don't do it if you see any of these things.
Perfect. So a big one before you're even in the house, walking up to the house, make sure that you take a look at the roof itself. If there's any sagging, that could be a sign of poor construction. And then also take a look at the actual shingles. Are they curling up or are the edges turning up? Is that grainy texture still on there? If that grainy texture is gone and you see a lot of black, that could lead to a lot of leaking. And then just a little tip for homeowners, make sure that when you're not pressure washing the shingles, have a professional come and clean it because that grainy texture really is there for a reason. So just things to look out for before you even get into the house. The roof is a big one and can be very expensive if you don't look at it ahead of time.
Number 2 is going to be your foundation. This one is huge. So if it is on a slab, you're going to want to make sure if you see the slab of the concrete, if it has cracks anywhere, especially like big, long cracks and things like that, you're going to want to pay note of that. There are going to be some settling cracks. So some little ones here and there aren't going to be that big of a deal, but I'm talking about the ones that are like going through the house that are like causing the floors to be unlevel and things like that. So obviously this brings us to unlevel floors. So if the floors, you're like in the living room and then you look in the kitchen and it's like steeping way down, that's a big red flag. Another thing would be wonky windows. So if you see wonky windows, it's also a foundation thing. So just things to keep in mind when you're looking at, and definitely big red flags with foundation.
Okay, and the next item is mold. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go check the crawl space of the home and see if there's any mold or moisture down there. Mold is super, super tricky. It can cause a lot of problems both with the home and your health. So that's a big one. If there isn't a crawl space in the home, just go check the plumbing itself. If you can go to the bathroom, if there's any mold in, let's say under the cabinets, that could be an issue, and it can also be a sign of plumbing issues if there's any leaking plumbing. So if, for example, you look at the wall and there's mold on the wall, that might be a leaky pipe inside. So again, mold and moisture, look for that, especially around the vents in the home.
Another big one, take a look at where the property is located. Flood zones, big. This was a big issue for us very recently. Killed a couple of deals for us. You want to know if you are in a flood zone or not. So the lender is going to go ahead and check that once you're already in the process, but it's good to know ahead of time before you're writing a contract. You want to know if you're in a flood zone or not. Sellers should be able to tell you that. The listing agent should have that information. Like I said, we're going to order it in the process, but you want to know ahead of time. If you are in a flood zone, you're required to get flood insurance, and it can be very expensive. And you also want to consider if that's a property that you're interested in or not.
Number 5 is going to be your structural issues. So structural, obviously, it is like the bones of the house, so it's really important and it can be really costly. So you definitely want to make sure your structural is intact and it is working well, and you don't have to worry about that because, like I said, it'll be really expensive in the long run. So ways to look at structurals: if there's separation in the windows, the walls, if there's cracks going all the way up the wall, I mean, that's a sign of structural things. It can be a little bit harder to detect structural issues than some of the other ones we have mentioned. You may want to hire, you should always hire a licensed inspector for things, but there's also people who are focused mainly on structural issues, which you can hire as well, which I would recommend if you have any concern that there may be structural issues at all.
All right, the next item is electrical. So this is one that's very, very hard to tell if there's an issue in it. Of course, you can go in the house and test every plug to see if there's any that aren't working, but mainly what you are going to be more concerned with is if the electrical is up to code. So electrical codes change, I think it's like every 3 years, so you want to bring that up to standard. So if you have an old house, that's going to be a lot of work to get it brought up to standard, and it can run you anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 depending on the size of the home and how much work actually needs to be done, so it can get a little bit pricey.
And then termites can be a big issue here in Tennessee, specifically in this region of the country. You're gonna get a termite inspection done once you're under contract, but you wanna know, should be looking for this ahead of time. If there's holes in any wood, if you actually see termites or little termite trails, just things to be aware of, because termites can affect the structural integrity of a property.
Number 8 is going to be, you want to take note if there are a lot of big trees or if there's just a big tree really close to the house, because that can have some serious issues long term on the house, because those roots are going to go deep, especially big oak trees, because it can affect your plumbing, it can affect and burst a pipe, it can affect your foundation, it can even affect your structure. There's so many things that it can affect, that you just want to take note of that, and just if it is really close to the house, you just have to be aware that it could be affecting all of those things I just mentioned.
All right, and lastly is plumbing. So again, this is another item that you're not going to be able to tell because it's hidden away, but you can go check under the sinks in the kitchen and in the bathroom, the toilets, if there's any leaks anywhere, pooling of moisture on the floor or on the walls, that's going to be an issue both for plumbing and again, the mold. And that kind of brings us to talk about whenever you do put in an offer for a home, not only should you have a regular inspector come out, but I wouldn't limit yourself to just a regular home inspector. You might want to have some experts in plumbing, electric, structure, a roofing expert come in and look at each of those components, because they're going to be able to give you estimates on each of those items, and you're going to be able to save more in the home, because then you can put in your repair replace proposal and say that we either want a credit to the purchase price or you're going to have to pay for this yourself. So that's a really good tip.
Yeah, and I'm going to piggyback off that a little bit, especially for investors who are doing fix and flips. They're going to look at like, oh, you know, it totally needs a lot of work and that's fine. But that's going to affect, like all things that we just mentioned are going to be big ticket items that may affect your ROI, where you could end up owing money at the end of the whole thing and not making a dime. So
Yes.
it's important.
Well, thank you for stopping by and watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up, a like. Well, they're the same thing. Subscribe, a comment. Let us know if you have any questions. You can expand the contact information and get in touch with us if you'd like to do business with us. So thank you for stopping by for Tune In Tuesdays, or see you next Tuesday. Bye.